All right, the pursuit of monetary policy that attracts short-term foreign currency portfolio investments are not enough and can't substitute for sound macroeconomic policies and actions that allow for long-term and sustainable foreign direct investment. This is according to Olivier Eweck, who is the managing director in charge of global public sector for sub-Saharan Africa at JP Morgan. He was speaking with Arise business correspondent Bosun Amofaya in Nairobi at the ongoing African Development Bank annual meetings.
Where will this FX liquidity come from? How can they take advantage of the interest rate environment, balancing inflation, as well as other risks?
Yes, thank you. You may have noticed that over the past couple of years, the market were pretty much closed for African countries. So they struggle a lot to issue international capital market to raise this hard currency funding. And it's only at the beginning of this year that Côte d'Ivoire, for instance, opened the market, and a few other countries followed suit. So we believe that it's important for the countries to develop a mechanism to raise more funding in their own market. So they need to develop the local capital market, and they also need to find a way to get hard currency financing, not just to portfolio investment, but by also diversifying the economy, creating the condition for more real investment that will create product that they will be able to sell into international market to raise the hard currency that they require. It's the best way for them to be sustainable in the long run. Otherwise, they will still be in that position where if ever the market turns, they don't have access to capital market, and they end up being in a very difficult financial position.
Very interesting when African sovereigns or central banks are offering very high rates and local yield to attract foreign portfolio investors trying to balance what comes from the side of the FDI. How do you think this can be balanced from the public sector point of view?
The mandate of the central bank is clear. In most countries, they have to fight inflation, so they don't have the choice. They need to raise this rate at a level that makes real rate positive again, and thereby attract a bit more portfolio investment into the country in order to stabilize also the balance of payment. It's part of the way to manage the economy. As I indicated, it's actually in the long run. In the long run, the conditions have to be created to make sure that we don't get into the double-digit inflation levels that creates the condition for the central bank to hike. If the central bank were not hiking as they are required, you will see a lot of outflows, as you've seen over the past few years in those emerging market countries. So it's their mandate. They have to produce real rate return, and by producing real rate return, you have more inflow portfolio. But as we indicated earlier, this is not necessarily that should not necessarily be the primary goal. The primary goal should be to attract long-term investment again that will be here for many years and invest into projects that will generate hard currency. So we need to find a way to fight inflation, and it's just by having a more diversified economy that can produce enough, and this economy will be more resilient and not prone to the foreign imported inflation that is coming from the rest of the world.
Sometimes Africans, fiscal authorities would have to take very tough decisions. Removal of subsidies has been advised by a number of multilateral institutions, whether it's on energy, electricity, or fuel and other things, gasoline. How do you think they can walk through these very tough structural reforms while trying to keep a very balanced exchange rate, inflation and interest rate locally?
Again, it's a question of sustainability. It's important to provide safety net for the public, but at the same time, the country needs to be able to afford it. And we were in a situation over the past few years where, because of the COVID, it was important for those countries to provide this safety net. Those safety net were provided for developed markets. People stay at home for a year and a half and they were paid. In the case of Africa, because we didn't have the fiscal headroom, our African countries were not able to do it to the same level. So, if I recall, we were less than 5% that GDP in terms of support, when in developed market it was like 15-20% that GDP level that was provided as a support. So, our country decided to shield the population against inflation, against oil and gas, but it cost a lot to the balance of payment, it cost a lot to the budget. So, it wasn't sustainable in the long term, and it's the reason why these countries, with the assistance of the IMF, had to put measures to kind of scale back these subsidies, just because it's not affordable. So again, there are market solutions to go around it. When energy prices were very low, it was also possible to hedge them, but none of these countries hedge. So I would say that we need to have a dynamic debt management process for this country to be nimble, to take opportunities when they exist. And subsidies can be a solution, but just for a short time frame, because in the long run, in most instances, it's not sustainable. And this is what IMF has been advising them to do.
On a final note, are there specific views for Nigeria, as it were, from JP Morgan in terms of whether it is monetary policy rate, exchange rate, and fiscal direction?
I mean, the new administration has been doing a great job to bring back the management of the country to a more orthodox way, and it's been working. So we just encourage the government to continue that front, and we'll be by their side to support them as we've done over the past decades, obviously.